revolutionary. I am a 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 revolutionary.
They take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Where there's people, there is power. Justice in our time. Good evening, everyone. This is another episode of Equal Start. Today I have my lovely guests. One is family, my cousin Jason, businessman and operations manager. And we have Lula. Would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, hello. Hello, my name's Lula. I work in regulatory leadership and yeah, that's what I do for a living. And I'm not a parent, but I have a lot of friends who are parents. So I'm participating from a place of not knowing, but experiencing. So hopefully we can have a good conversation.
Okay. Have you, in terms of the regulatory position you have in your day-to-day, is that within the social justice sector or is that working with families?
It's generally in health and social care. So I
Okay.
work across hospitals. I work with local authorities, adult social care, children's services. So I work across all of them. And yeah, it's interesting to see the struggles of the government trying to manage all the family justice issues and the different issues that they come up against as government trying to do the right thing by their constituents. And it varies between different boroughs as well greatly. So I would say there's a string of there's a string of, you could say a golden string, but it varies on the way that each borough treats its constituents when it comes to adult social care issues. So yeah.
Yeah, see, so you've got practical experience then.
In a
You should
way, yeah.
you should have seen because how I'm connected with Lula is she you know the Mama's Drama podcast I went on.
Yeah.
She was chastising them with
Okay.
with her knowledge and that it made them feel small. They got defensive. So
Okay.
I clapped her and liked the comment. That's how we started talking online. So she I knew she had big experience still with her in terms of her employment and that. So in those times when you're working, Lula, and the families that you come across, what's the biggest problems when it comes to facing the cost of it? Is it the parents are struggling with the budgeting, or do you find any kind
I,
of negligence with the parenting?
so in my current role, I'd say I'm not involved with the parents themselves.
Mm.
I see more of like what the government deals with when it comes to cost of living crisis and the impact that the requests that families make on like the local government, the impact on the cost and the spending and how it's kind of allocated. But in my career, definitely cost of living, because it's been going on for quite a while, I'd say it is one of the biggest factors that's impacting people across. So from education, so previously I used to work in a university, that impact on students, the impact on parents of those students. I've worked in adult social care most of my life. So in the last 4 years, working in local government, I've seen, families who would have been quite happily, functioning quite well, struggling to kind of meet ends meet. And, these kind of things that the government have put in place so you can request for cost of living support and payments based on your income. I think the fact that food banks even have more people going to them and it's quite a relaxed nature, it's quite concerning that people would say go to a food bank. Like, is that a normal thing to say to someone in a developed society? When you look at the history of England, previously they've been like, it's been a war-torn country and people would say go, get your rations, and it wasn't something people would be proud to do. I think, we're at a point where we're quite relaxed with saying, oh, go to the food bank. We will give you a little bit of something to tie you over. But the question that should be asked is why are you having to request that? I think.
Mm.
Do you
I
know what I
agree, I
mean?
agree.
It's
To be
quite
fair,
concerning to me.
locally where I'm in Merton Borough, they have a few food banks, but a lot of people, the reason why they visit is some of them are working families as well. So, and with two parent households.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So imagine how it is for single parents. I noticed that that kind of
exactly.
phenomenon happened from, when we had lockdown in 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah, even NHS staff were going to food banks. It was serious. And like mid-level police bobbies, constables. And I was shocked because before, they used to try, his dosses on benefits, skivers,
yeah,
Yeah, so and it's mad. It was mad. So when I've seen, the latest political news around Keir Starmer said, yeah, he's going to be, raising national insurance income contributions. I said, obviously you're discouraging companies from hiring them because they're thinking, oh, I have to make all these extra national insurance contributions for hiring new staff. So for me, it's like they're deliberately trying to put people into poverty. And with
yeah,
in terms of the welfare support, they're clamping down on PIP. They're saying mental health is basically a charade, obviously tactfully, not so open as that, but dropping that in there.
yeah.
Basically said, yeah, we got to reduce the bill, the welfare bill, because it's unsustainable and things like that. So it's got people, especially working and poor people, running for cover. And
I think I think you're correct. But one of the things that I would highlight, and I think it's quite strange, is that they encourage people over the last 4 years specifically, and especially during COVID, to talk about mental health and openly go into like workspace and create quote unquote safe spaces to talk about mental health and made this whole big, kind of story around mental health. And now, after people are participating in being open, they've now said they're clamping down on it, which has left these people overly exposed.
mm,
Um, and it's made people who weren't necessarily vulnerable because they have become so used to a certain level of support that maybe it might be getting taken away from them in an upcoming months. Do you get what I mean?
mm,
Um, and I think when we look at the bigger picture of how our society is run, it's quite interesting to see how, well, in I would say in the last 20 years, the way the welfare system has transformed from being like you get housing benefits, you get job seekers allowance. These are separate benefits for each aspect of daily living to, and even disability living allowance to universal credit. And I said this to my friend literally this week.
mm,
The word universal and the word credit says it all. So, we have to look at why is it like that? Why did they decide to use one benefit to blanket all of these very important aspects of, I don't know, living, if you don't have a good house, you don't have a good life because you're living in poverty. You're
mm,
worrying about what you're going to do day to day. You don't have a stable foundation. And I think it's just interesting how society is transforming over the last maybe 7 years, how it's transformed so much.
mm,
As you know how I feel about talking about single parents and blaming each other, we have to look at what we do as individuals, but as a collective, the impact of what we say and do in the wider space. I think that's an important point to kind of discuss and
mm.
explore further, especially when it comes to children. And as your charity, the drive of your charity having an equal start for parents who may be having a separation or there's a reason for, legal to get involved in people's personal lives.
True, it's true. Yeah, I know it's true. It's an overextension. Because how do you find it? 'Cause you've been quiet. How do you find it with big businessman and operation manager? You see, how's it affecting you and your partner? Mm,
For me personally, luckily I've got a decent job that pays well. And obviously you're still struggling at the same time where you're still trying to make ends meet in certain situations, especially when you need a little bit heating a little bit longer. Food obviously is food, so you need that regardless. But when I look at society and how certain people are living and how they're deciding from eating or putting the heating on, it makes you wonder, it makes you blessed to think, okay, I'm in my position, but other people are struggling a lot.
But you want to actually go and get your foot on the property ladder, isn't it? See, so
Yeah. So
20 years ago, you've been able to do it easy with the kind of income and the job that you're in. And now
exactly,
it's a lot harder, you
exactly.
see?
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So it still would happen, hopefully, in the next couple of years, but it's just taking a bit longer than norm. Um, but obviously, I've got my situation a little bit different now with certain situations. But yeah, it's all good. It all should come to light soon.
Do you think you'll be able to do that without a secondary income from a partner? Or you'll be able to fund that yourself? In the light
Obviously,
of what's happening.
secondary income is always going to be helpful. Also ease a little bit of the pressure. But end of the day, I still need to do what I want to do for myself personally, away from anyone else.
So if going forward, what would you propose, Lula, that people do then? Advice you can give to, since you're working at that social care, for them to balance their budgets and have a reasonable lifestyle despite the hikes in, consumer prices for everyday
I think
goods and food.
I can't advise people what to do with their life. That's a realistic expectation. Governments have objectives to fulfill and money to make. We have to get away from the mentality that the government has our best interest at heart. That's the biggest lie. Like,
Mm.
their job is to sustain a society that is functional for the benefits of the crown. Even though they serve the people, they are beneficiaries of the crown and they are beneficiaries of themselves. They're only human. We go to work to make money to live. And I think that it's very important that I keep saying very important because it is to
Mm.
me anyway. When the word that you used just now, consumer. So we need to stop being consumers and look at our lives and what do you actually want from your life? Do you want to buy a £3,000 bag or do you want to get on the property ladder? We all like nice things, but we have to put it in perspective. I think there's things that in society, because of social media, there's pressures around looking like you're doing something, looking like you're successful, looking like, you're an A1 parent. No one's perfect. Everyone wants to have a nice house, everyone wants to live in their own house, and you have a bit of stunting rights. But I think it's important that we look at, okay, this is my reality. So I live in Tottenham. I'm on a median income. No, I can't buy an expensive bag. No, I can't look like some women on social media. No, you know what I mean? It's about being realistic about what effort are you going to put into your life and what are you prioritizing, I think. And the advice I would say I'd give everybody is just be authentic to yourself rather than trying to strive to have what other people have and have an unrealistic expectation of the materialistic things that you want in your life.
Mm.
Maybe you'd be a bit more happier if you did things that were fulfilling to you rather than looking like. So that would be my main thing. Because even within my role in multiple jobs, I've said it to the students when I was in the uni, they'll have £300 trainers on and they're coming to me, Miss, I need a grant for something. So
Mm.
I'm like, but you got a grant last week. Yeah, but I bought this. So why did you buy it? Oh, because it looks nice. Do you get what I mean? So there's an element of prioritization, but also how much are you willing to work for what you want? That's a part of it as well. In our society, we want everything easy. Some of the struggle is what makes it worth it. That's my opinion. I'm sure people would disagree. It's about the
Mm.
process and the journey. No, seriously, the
Mm.
process and the
Yeah,
journey is what makes it worth. Yeah, exactly.
mm.
The process and the journey makes it worth it. Imagine you could just, today wake up, get in a helicopter and fly to Barbados. You'll be like, yeah, I'll do that every day. But when you actually can do that every day, it becomes nothing because it doesn't have anything behind it.
Yeah, no,
It's too
value, I know.
easy.
The expectations
Yeah,
go up
so.
and it just becomes a normal reality. It's true. But I think with this the balance and what the government is doing, like you said, the consumer spending is it's all based on psychology and a system that has been in place for a good 400, 500 years. So with that kind of practicing how to manipulate people and the social economics, I can understand why the lay person would just say, we're grown up, average household, get a job, beneath the price of assets, the salaries. Like, see, when my parents bought their first home in 1990, and they were 74,000. It was only maybe 5 or 6 times more than their yearly income. Now you're talking about 25, 30 times the average income. You see what I mean? So, especially in London. So I can understand why people say, you know what, I'd rather, live the showbiz lifestyle, because these days people want experiences more than assets. But like you said,
Yeah,
it's based on materialism. So I think the balance has to be there, because I've seen people that hoard their money and they're still miserable as sin. Or like, he said,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to enjoy my life when I'm older. And they don't live to see that age. You see what I mean? It's like the Bible, the scripture, when it said, yeah, the man store off, up the wheat in his house, in his farm. And he said, yeah, I'm going to enjoy my labor. And he said, thou fool, though God requires your soul tonight. So I think because of that and this YOLO living,
Yeah.
this is why you get the people that have the sense, but they're thinking, it's take too many years to do that for something that I might never pay off, or a pension I might never see. So that encourages the fast
Yeah.
life and the spending.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
without experiences, a lot of people are very miserable, very miserable. Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
Especially
think
if yeah, go ahead.
no, you go because I can tell the side story.
No,
Yeah.
I was just similar to what Sean was saying, because obviously if you can see that house prices are where they're at, and it's like you're never gonna get there. So why would you bother trying to aim for that if I do see a nice bag for 3K there? I might as well get that instead of trying to save 300K.
Mm. Mm.
I
So
do
so
I
You
do
go.
understand that.
Mm.
I do understand that. But don't tell me later, man, because you're gonna be saying I want a council house, and then you're gonna be on the housing list for 15 years. And in the 15 years you might have been able to save enough to get that mortgage. I
Mm.
think I'm
but
I'm being brutal because it's a more of a thought process rather than the reality. I
Mm.
think that there should be a balance between, working and getting your money and being able to accumulate assets and being able to enjoy your life, because life is to be enjoyed. That's what I believe. But when we're looking at the the balance between that lifestyle that we're seeing constantly being shoved in our face, the podcast talking about parenthood, when did it become a competition to be a parent? When did it become a
Mm.
competition to be yourself? If you're authentic to yourself, it's not a struggle to exist. It becomes a struggle when you're trying to adhere to social standards in every aspect of your life. And I think that you know, even if, say, for example, I'm on 70K a year, back to this subject, oh, it gets sticky because you're talking about people and their money.
Mm.
You're on 70K a
No, I
year
don't, I
getting
don't, I
taxed
don't
on.
threaten that. I don't threaten over talking about them kind of things. I know some people do, because they think if someone's in the court
Yeah,
out there, right, for the little shekels that they've picked up. But I don't. Mm.
yeah,
everyone's on 100K apparently, isn't it? So
Yeah,
yeah.
all the
Do you
high
know what I'm
valley men, all the
saying?
high valley men, 100,000, 6 foot,
Yeah,
and
everyone's on six
mm,
figures.
yeah.
Everyone's on six figures and not getting taxed, supposedly. Yeah.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
So imagine you're on 70K, just to be nice. Say you're on 70K, you're getting taxed on the 40%, 45% bracket, depending on, what you have. And then you want to go on holiday multiple times a year. You also want to acquire a home. Say you wanted to acquire like a 3 bedroom house. The problem is here is we understand, because we live in London, the cost of London. So what would the sacrifice be if you wanted the house move outside of London, right?
Mm.
Some people don't want to do that. There's sacrifice. My point being, let me just get it short and sweet. That there is sacrifices in everything that you do, and if you do not make a sacrifice one way or another, the universe will force you to make a sacrifice. Your life will force you to make a sacrifice, and anything that you do in your life, you will have to sacrifice something that you might not want to now or later, but you have to. So for example, going back to the point, if you're on 70K a year and you want to get a 3 bedroom house, you know, okay, based on the salary in my 2 holidays a year that I want, I won't be able to get a house in London because you need something like, what is it, 15 times your salary or whatever it is now. Uh, and then you haven't even made a plan on how you will do that. You just want it. You know, ask people, what does your plan look like? They won't be able to tell you because they haven't thought that process through.
Mm,
So they know the outcome, they know what they want, and they know they're at a place, but they haven't thought of the process. And I
mm.
think that's another thing that sticks out to me when you have those kind of conversations with people. It's like, okay, you want this, but how are you going to get it then? What have you
Yeah,
got
of course.
in your toolbox right now, and what do you need to get to that point?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
True.
you make good points there, but I also feel like I understand the sacrifice part. Um, but then if you are looking to obviously buy outside of London, now you're moving away from your job. Now you're moving away from your family. Like
Yeah, that's
like
what I was
that
about to say, to be fair, bro.
you need to kind of think through fully. I understand the sacrifice part, but it's like why should you have to move to the north of England just to get on the property ladder when your family's in London?
So your support network's cut off.
This is
And then if
exactly
there's
so.
something, there's an
And
illness
then
like
it,
with
and
immediate
it,
family,
and then
you're in trouble.
that's when you might have mental issues because you don't see your friends and family as often. Well, you have to jump on Zoom to see your friends and family. Like it just doesn't really add up.
Mm.
But I do
Yeah,
understand the sacrifice part. Like if you are striving to get to something and get a goal, you do need a sacrifice. But that's why we shouldn't be living like this. Like Britain's the sixth richest country in the world. Like how most people living
Mm.
like this, you
Mm.
know?
Mm.
yeah.
It's a disgrace, to be fair.
It's designed like that. That's the point.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
once you become, if you're, so for example, how I'd answer your question is, okay, my theoretical scenario, you pointed out the flaw in my theoretical scenario. Now, you know what you want, but based on your scenario, you don't want to leave London, you don't want to leave your support network, and you don't want to potentially cut off yourself from what you know to be in a different position, right? And you shouldn't have to. That's the reality. You shouldn't have to. So when we go back to that thought process of the thought process of how do you get there, how do you get to your ultimate goal? What would your answer be to get into the goal then,
Like I
without
said,
leaving London?
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah.
It's just
No, no,
obviously
but
it's just the impact of moving out if you just because you want to get a certain goal. Like you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to buy in London very easily as you would in the north of England or wherever you're living.
You think about it, if they do that and this continues, what will happen is London will get a brain drain. People will move out and they won't have people close
well, they
by
already
to
are.
work.
And that's what
Mm,
happens now.
yeah, that's what's up.
People
Yeah, they're
are moving
moaning
out.
about
Yeah,
it, going to Manchester, going to Birmingham.
yeah.
I just done a quick look while you was talking. Look, average house price in London, 755,000, over 750,000. Jesus.
Yeah,
Flats,
exactly.
Yeah,
590,000. You see what I mean?
yeah.
Like, terrace property in London, 929,000, and semi-detached average 1,038,032 pounds.
Mm.
It's worse than I thought. See, I
Yeah,
was
it's
mad
ridiculous.
3 4 years. Jesus.
But it's
Mad.
by design though. It's by
It's
design.
definitely by design. Yeah.
And yeah, and look, it's
Yeah.
telling me that look, its house prices have declined by 8% since lockdown. So that's in a decline. So what happens when it starts booming again? Jesus.
Yeah.
All
I think
all pumped up by
it's a
credit.
monopoly though. It's a monopoly, as we all know how to play Monopoly. The people with the money buy up the properties and they inflate the price. Because you got to think about how many people live in house shares that you know personally. You might not even,
Most of my people in my office are flat sharing,
right?
and they all got decent money, and they're still flat
Yeah,
sharing.
exactly. I know a lot of people house share, and I'm probably one of the few people I know that doesn't house share. And my thing is, when I saw the price of a room, I said, "You what?" I was like, "Hey, hold on,
Yeah,
what?
it's
Eight
ridiculous.
hundred pound, £800 for a room, my friend. Like, are you
Mm.
serious?" So, and that's on outer London zone 4. And then when you look at inner London, you see because of COVID and people working from home, people are not commuting into office. So a lot of the office spaces are being converted into housing,
Mm.
and the house prices rival that in zone 1. in zone 4, zone 5, because people are like, well, I don't need to go to central London. I can live in Enfield, I can live in, I don't know, Essex, Loughton, whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
can live in where you are, South London side, over in Beckenham, wherever it is, and then they're literally like, I'm at home, and they're still making their money.
Mm.
So it's all part and parcel of the environment that we're living in, and I think it's definitely on purpose. It's just on purpose. Everything's on purpose. So
To be fair, they're reducing that now, though. They're reducing that. They're trying to put pressure on people to return to work because they're saying a lot of the local businesses are folding because there's not enough footfall,
Yeah,
and
so the Khan came
and
out
they're
and said that.
losing tax receipts. The economy is contracting. That's what they're saying. So a lot of companies now, where I see maybe a year or so ago, they were like, "Yes, you can work from home." Now they say, "No, you have to return to the office." Even the other day, I got offered a complaints over the job in the housing role, and I said, "Look, I just had knee surgery." And they're like, oh, can't I work from home? I said, no, you need to come into Bracknell. Even though it's in the same county, I mean, in Surrey, that is a good 25 miles from where I am. Yeah, yeah. So it's mad. It's mad. Yeah. So I don't know how that's going to work out with this trying to get people to come back, especially with the salaries paying most of it on travel,
Like, they're a
especially
bit,
people from like Essex and that.
yeah, but especially if they've been working from home for the last 4 or 5 years, why would they want to come back to work? Like I work from home 3 days. I mean, I work in the office 3 days a week. Now I know that's going to obviously go up in the next couple of years. Like,
Mm.
so,
yeah.
and that's going to be a big toll financially then as well. So I don't know how you're going to get people that've been working from home for 4 or 5 years. I don't know how you're going to get them back into work.
I think any office role that uses computer and internet should be able to have remote working. You should. It
100%.
doesn't make no sense unless you do manual labor or you work in construction. You know what I mean? Or logistics like with retail, food supply, farming, things like that. There's no way that you should be compelled to come into the office.
I literally go into the
Especially
office
when the
to,
companies can save money on building rent.
yeah,
But then
100%.
again, the government saying, listen, the little food stall that sells the coffee and sandwiches is folding. The bars around, like say Canary Wharf, we're fun enough where I used to work 4 or 5 years ago. They're saying, look, it's like a ghost town now. Before this was thriving. So a lot of the small restaurants, like the kind of medium level restaurants closing. A lot of the like delicacies are closing. Even I see
Yeah.
some Pret a Manger's, they're up in sticks and going elsewhere. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's big brands that are closing as well. It's not just the small independent ones.
see, there you
Big,
go.
big brands are closing down. But I mean, when
So
the prices are ridiculous, they pay like £10 for a sandwich. Like, who's doing that in this day and age?
it's it's
Can buy
it's
two loaves of
serious.
bread with it,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Two loaves of bread. Can buy
Exactly.
two loaves of
Sourdough,
bread, all the
sourdough.
same
You
in
know the
little
thing,
cans.
sourdough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He said you have to pay to be healthier. If you don't want to pay that, you can eat, the standard brown loaf that is, raising your
and then
sugar levels and give you diabetes, high
yeah,
blood pressure. Get
and
it
then
up
meal
like that.
deals, meal deals for 350, 375 now.
Jesus.
Yeah. But
It's
all it shows to me is that the power of the British currency is just weakening so much as well.
mm,
Because, what used to cost £1, when I saw that, a packet of crisps is basically £1, I was like, yeah, okay, bye. I
yeah.
go into the shop. I said, oh, let me pick up a K8. I'm not even joking, I'm of that age. Like, let me pick up a K8. I saw 75p. I said, which part? Bye.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah. Playing for them boys and they're no, it's serious, it's true. I was
It's
telling
true.
I, I
It's true.
was telling my kids the other day that I remember when I was a kid, Twix was 19 pence. Yeah. And Snickers is called
There
Marathon
was
then. It was
penny
23.
tweaks.
Nah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like 99 pence, 75 pence for the normal one. Yeah, it's mad.
Mm.
The thing is that they're getting smaller as well. Like, the packets are
Mm,
getting smaller, so it's
mm.
like you're paying for more even though you're getting less. Like, it doesn't make sense.
See, so I'm
Mm.
gonna have to do that with the jerseys and cheeses. Like what Sainsbury's, they're 250. Because I bought a couple of 130 millimeters the other day, and my daughter was saying, "Oh, Dad, why are you not getting those normal jars?" I said, "Yeah, because Daddy's freeze the prices, Mama, and I can't give the same amount for that." So I said, "Oh, well, I do the freeze the prices and make it smaller. I'm using, the commercial tricks."
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
but yeah, it's serious pressure out here. Serious. Even 3 4 years ago, I tried to get a flat close to where I was living in Plough Lane, And I thought, yeah, come in there, said, yeah, how much deposit you got? I said, yeah, 30 grand. They said, what you getting a year? And I said, 45. And they said, no, your partner needs to get the same amount of money. And you need double that
Yeah.
for the place I was
65
looking at.
minimum.
Yeah, and the money
65
box
minimum.
would only give me a £200,000 mortgage. So I was well short. I was short 150,000. So I said, Jesus, I'll be 195 before I get one. Yeah, that's how it's looking. Unless
Even
the
though
crypto busts, unless the crypto gets real big again. Mm. So yeah, so I think it's a struggle,
yeah, I
man.
think
Struggle.
scamming's the only like scamming is the best way people are making money at this point, but you have to pay for it later. So I wouldn't advise. I mean, I was gonna say
Politicians
with
do it all
the
the time. They
yeah,
scam all the time. Jesus. Mm.
yeah, we don't want to be like them though. They're the worst of the worst.
I
You
know.
know,
Mm.
I don't know why the British people don't stand up against them, to be honest. If we stood up against the government, there wouldn't be a government like this,
Yeah, of course.
honestly.
Of course.
Yeah, so we're playing our part by being passive about what we don't like. I was going to say to you with the housing thing, even Homes for Londoners, that scheme, you have to be earning at least 65K to get like a one bedroom, and that's 65K after you get taxed. I know that because I was there. I was
Mm.
there. They're like, no, you don't earn enough. Sorry. Yeah,
Mm.
you can't. And the ground rents. I was looking at a property by Berkeley Homes in Enfield. It was a two-bedroom flat. I was like, okay, let me just have a look, and I will send you the screenshot actually at some point. The
Mm.
ground rent starting price was 6,000 English pounds. The ground rent, not including your mortgage, not including any service charges for being on that land. I was like, £6,000? No, that's a lot.
See?
That's a lot.
That's nasty bit of work, that is.
Yeah, and
Mm.
these are houses. I'm not, someone might say that's not a lot, but for the average person, that is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It,
It is.
no, it is a lot. It's a lot.
Only
Yeah.
millionaires would talk like that. That's madness. Anytime you have to be using credit to get everyday staples or get yourself a motor vehicle or be able to cover your rent, then you're in serious hardship. You're like only like a couple of paychecks from bankruptcy or being out on the street. Yeah, that's the pressure that people have to see. Make sure they stay in work, stay in reasonable income. Otherwise, they could be a homeless person by the next year. And
Yeah.
that's the pressure why people you see this mental health crisis rising because they're thinking there's no let up. If I take a breather and that I don't even have 6 months savings to cover the basics and the staples and the utilities, it's mad.
It
Mm.
is, and another thing I noticed and I was aware of, young children talking about they need to be a millionaire. That's so weird to me. A young child saying, I need to make 10 grand, I need to be a YouTuber and make money. Like you don't, when you're a child, your innocent mind should be able to be free of those thoughts about money
Mm.
and all those kind of things. Like I want to be a fireman and literally run around the playground and say, yeah, I'm a fireman in your imagination. That kind of freedom to think about things that are not adult, money, bills, having money, spending money. That's not a thing a child should even really think about. But I hear
But
children all the time, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be an influencer, I want to make money, I want to have a specific car, and it's weird, man.
To be fair,
The pressure,
a lot of the YouTubers and influencers they don't make that kind of money. It's like you said, it's a
it's
shop.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
select
it's
few is
just to
doing
your
that.
fam.
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah. But
But
again, because they're seen on social, they think everyone who's got a little bit of views and following, they're all making money.
no, you don't.
Most of them, don't even have a grand to their name.
Yeah, no, no. And
or
that's something we must.
they're renting.
That's something we must catch up with next time still because the time is nearly out now. Mm?
Yeah.
What's your lot's pattern in terms of going forward with the meetings? Is Sunday's the best
Whatever
time
you
or
want,
Wednesday evenings?
whatever you want. I'll just make the time. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm good for whatever.
Okay,
Because I
I'll
think
let the others know. All right, and that's another episode of Equal Starts. Thanks for coming on, Lula and cousin.
You're welcome.
You
you're
know,
welcome. Thanks for the
where there's
invite.
people, there's power. Justice in our time.